Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So this is going to be a little audio that will also be in the Journey series. It's going to be short. There's this epic spiritual gathering that we're doing on the Gratefulness Meditation channel, and just in general, in our privacy of our own homes, people are doing it. And it's going really well. And I had really great meditations. Last night, Wednesday, uh, April 30th, there was an amazing meditation sitting. And I had a weird dream that was very much a Pockets of the Future dream. And so I want to get into this thing I've been waiting to cover, this Tucker Carlson thing, and what a POS he is. And that's, involves, 9/11, a whole bunch of stuff. And he has this clown on. And then, of course, Trump for freaking out about Bezos and some of these other things. So I want to cover all that today. Another great meditation this morning, so I'm just kind of in a blissed out state. But anyways, so having this dream, very vivid dream, and I'm like, I think I'm being the first part of the dream, which I don't remember so well, but I'm being bugged by people. Like I'm a little bit just, introverts just have so much time they want to be around people and then have to withdraw. So I'm in a private situation. I'm just kind of trying to get away from everybody. And like there's something that's happened that has to do like with me being involved with mainstream media. And so then Senator Fetterman, like somebody knocks and I'm like, go away. Like, like somebody knocks on my door, I say, go away. But the door's open, the door's unlocked, and the Senator Fetterman walks in. And there's been some sort of thing that's happened, whether it's real or, it's in a dream anyway, where there's like a mass shooting or something. Some guys like killed a bunch of people. And Fetterman says the guy who did it, either, I don't know how he knows this, but the media's covering it, said that Paul, me, this is what Paul would do. Right? Like, this is what Jesus would do. And so, and I'm just hearing about it. Like I heard rumblings, like it was like there's people like trying to tell me something. I was just trying to get away. Maybe there's like media outside my something like that. But I don't remember. It's very vague. And so I started explaining to Fetterman that's not what I would do because nobody knows me, right? I talk about the left-right paradigm. And Fetterman's nodding, and I remember that the guy doesn't understand shit. Like he's got a processing issue, right? And so I'm like, dude, do you understand what I'm saying? And he's like, and he just babbles like he does, like he makes nonsensical statement. So then I go to look up the whole event, and I can't find it anywhere. I can't find this event. Like it's supposed to be mainstream media, and then and there's all these, but there's no event. But people are coming to me saying it happened outside the internet, and I'm like, yeah, but I can't find it. There's no news on it. There's nothing. And so that's when I woke up, and I thought that was interesting. Um, I have long felt that, and this has to do with the Tucker Carlson thing, which we'll get into here in a moment. There is some evidence that, so there's things that happen where, just we were watching the movie Heretic, and he has this great monologue in the middle where he's talking about religions being a new iteration of the same stories. Some of the same stories are found in these religions across the world. And he has this song by the Hollies, "The Air That I Breathe," and then the song by the Radiohead called "Creep," which the Hollies sued Radiohead for. And then Lana Del Rey did a straight up rip off of the song "Creep." The Hollies one, it's harder to hear, but there's these, lawsuits about songs where, somebody takes some of the same notes, some of the fabrics of a song, but sometimes the artist who did it, maybe had heard the song and really didn't, register it when they were writing their new song. Like they didn't just listen to the song, right? But it was there, or maybe they didn't hear it at all, and they came up with the same thing, right? In terms of these iterations of the same thing. And there's times that there's parallel creative processes, right? But there are things that I've said and things that I've done that I've been first. Of course, now, I said this was going to be the year of chaos, and now it's a democratic talking point, and they're saying chaos all the time. But, I kind of brought back the word ghoul, like people have credited that for me. Somebody just wrote me a comment. I don't know what it's about, but they said that there's something else. But things that I've done first, but, you know, even the stuff that I get from the Sajmark system, some of the things I say and ideas are from books I've read. There's just the transmission aspect of it. And so, a lot of people are going to have the same kind of internal thing. So I don't, I don't look at it as being mine. Like, the stuff, it's whatever it is, right? The things that I say here, my version of saying these things are mine, but the ideas are there for everybody. And whether they credit, if they hear them from me and then share them, which has happened, I know to some extent. There's people who have stole some of my personal stories that are mine, they're my experiences and pass them off. But, everybody has there's like a lot of plagiarism in the comedic world. And, sometimes people steal a whole persona, right? But what happened with Tucker Carlson was, he started using the word ghoul. And people started sending me things saying that he's stolen it from you. Which, that's whatever that is. But, the bigger thing was, I remembered a video clip, which I'll show you in a moment. And it's from my video. I can't find the clip. I found it on YouTube, but it appears not to be there. And there's a guy who used to make truther videos. I don't know if he still exists because I couldn't find his channel. His name was Team Wake 'em Up, or he maybe had another name too. But this is from an old-time truther. And he took a clip of Adam versus the Man, another old-time truther. That guy, went to jail because he loaded a shotgun in Washington, D.C., where he lived, which is illegal to have firearms. And he did it, to try to provoke the whatever was going on, the government there. And they put him in jail for 9 months. I don't think that guy exists either in terms of being a truther. There are a lot of these people that have now disappeared. And there was a Ron Paul event. And if anybody finds the full video, you can let me know. But it was at a Ron Paul event. So it was probably, 2007 or 8. Ron Paul was probably running for president at the time. And Tucker Carlson was there. And Adam versus the Man asked him about 9/11 being an inside job. And Tucker Carlson is going, come on, I'll show you the clip from my video, right? And, I put this out there like he had been a dick to us. And he, was implying that, we were crazy and should be dismissed. And it was just not that. There's, he was going after conspiracy theorists, so-called conspiracy theorists, quite a bit. And so then he turns around and becomes a semi-little truther-adjacent person. And I said, but he has to frickin' deal with the past. And he came out and apologized. Like somebody sent me a clip where he admitted that now he believed that any of these things were possible and that he was wrong about that. So that was, people told me he's a CIA shill, and, I think that's highly likely. I haven't looked really that much into Tucker Carlson, but, he's backed Trump, and he said he was at the event, the fake, assassination attempt. So he's kind of a piece of shit, but whatever. All that stuff. And, a liar, and he used to hate Trump for legitimate reasons, right? The reasons that people do hate Trump, that, and now he's embracing him, the whole thing. So, it's not whatever he is. But, he does this thing with this other guy. So let me show you the clip first here from my video. But, this idea that, I don't need to be acknowledged by the people in the beast. Like, they mean nothing to me. Like, I'm not impressed by them just because they're famous or they have positions of power. Like it's something I had in a previous life. Like I had a life where I was a bad king in India. I was one of these fucking shit bags. I'm not impressed by it because it's something that, I'm repelled by it. Like as much as I cover all this stuff, like it's something I have an aversion to because, I went through that stage. Like I went through that stage where I was, a powerful person and I had a shitty life and did shitty things and it was a long life. At least this is my past life experience to whatever, that it's very subtle. It can't be totally validated. But, I had one of these. This is why I'm so good at, understanding what they're doing because I did it years and years ago in ancient India. Like it was, which is like, that's why I'm so perceptive because, it was something that I, went through myself and now I've come out the other end. So there's no sense in me of needing to be acknowledged by these scumbags, that I've transcended that experience within my own, spiritual evolution. And so I don't, in fact, I have a repulsion to it. It's clear. Like, maybe going into it, I didn't know. Like when I started to become, like a internet famous a little bit. Like I'm not, in the truth community in terms of, millions of people see my views or whatever videos, but, whatever that is. And I realized I didn't like it. Like I just it wasn't, getting a lot of thumbs up or getting. I don't even look at that. Like I have to scroll over to look at the view count and the other things. And the more views would be great financially and would serve a purpose of this ideas of the Sajmark teachings of the divinity within you and the system of gratefulness meditation. It'd be great if more and more people did it. It would be great for them and great for humanity, but it would suck for me to some extent. It'd be great for me, at a spiritual level, but it'd be difficult for me to deal with, like, the more people, it is. So, like, I'm not someone who thinks more is better, and I would much prefer quality over quantity. And so, all these things have to be, like, understood about my certain personality type. Like, I'm not here to be famous or I don't want to see at the table. I don't want to be in the show. Like, I enjoy the show from a viewer perspective and certainly covering it. But being detached from it and seeing it as an unreal thing. And so having a dream like that, it's not, it is whatever it is, right? If I was cast in the show, I would be cast as some crazy conspiracy theorist, cult leader like that. Like, if, you don't get to pick your parts, right? When you're in the show, like you can audition for a part. It's like that guy in the disaster artist, the guy who made that epically bad movie, The Room, whatever that guy's name is, and don't tell me, don't, Weezen something or other. He's like, they show him in acting class, and the guy saying, you should go for roles as a villain. He's like, no, I'm a hero. I'm no villain. I'm a hero. Like, there's kind of a good movie, both of them, in terms of like comedy value, because the Room is so bad and they did an excellent job, but that guy got Me Too'd. Like, this is another example of that. James Franco, like, he made this great movie, Tommy, whatever his name, Tommy Wiseau or whatever. And, it was kind of being celebrated as sort of genius. It was maybe a possible Academy Award nomination for something. And James Franco got canceled. Like, he got Me Too'd. It's 2017, I think it was released. Or whatever it is, when that Me Tooing was happening. And so, you don't get to pick those things. And you can be a hero for a while, and then you're inside the beast, and you're used, you're cast in a role, and they just morph reality to make you be in that position, right? And so to me, it's like, that's not a goal of mine. Like, I'm not, I have no ambition to be there. Like, I don't want any sort of acknowledgement from that standpoint, right? Not because of my humility or something like this. It's just because it's icky, right? That whole thing is icky, and I've been there and done that in some past existence. And so, Like I have it has no allure to me, no pull, and it doesn't validate me from my, like I'm not going to feel great because I got like a million thumbs up, like as opposed to one thumbs up. Like there's no difference, right? Or a million thumbs down, like it means nothing. Like it's, you know, like it doesn't validate whether I'm doing a good job. It's when you internalize your success in terms of, personal growth and becoming a better person, and better person's kind of a vague term, but becoming more than you were, like better than you were in the past, evolving to a higher level. Your consciousness is shifting, and your understanding of reality is, you're softening, and you're becoming more divine, right? You're embracing the divinity within you. Like you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards, and so the success or failure is based in that. And if you're having success in the spiritual field, a lot of it has to do with being blessed by God or higher developed beings that are helping you. Like you can't do it on your own. You're either etheric beings or some great spiritual master or something, which I've had the good fortune to be in my situation has happened for me. And I'm well aware that I was like worthless underachiever before I found the Sajmark system, and I was just lost, and I was like, I mean, being an underachiever means that you have hidden abilities, you have abilities that you're not using, that you have talents and abilities that are not, when people look at you and say, you're less than you should be. It's one thing if you just suck and you're remedial and you're a binary person, with a binary IQ, with a double-digit IQ and the inability for abstract thought, and you have a lot of grossness and you grew up in a traumatic situation, and you were malnourished in every level, physically for food and in terms of consciousness level and education, you're around uneducated people, and you didn't get the proper training and development, and you're around scumbags and criminals, you're limited, right? Like what's the best you can be? I mean, there's lots of people in the world. They just don't. The best they can be is, I mean, just very they're very limited in their potential. But if somebody has a lot of potential, and has a lot of whatever some things to offer the world, and you're underachieving, that's always viewed as being like why are you withholding? Like why are you I mean, there's people who come from shitty, completely horrible backgrounds and achieve greatness in the world, right? And people are like, oh my God, what an incredible story. Like, how do you do that, right? People with handicaps and disabilities and all these things, and they rise above it. But people who have, intelligence and talents that they're not using, are always viewed as, I mean, so being an underachiever is something that I view as one of the worst things. Of course, in the Sajmark system, it is the worst thing. That the worst thing that you can have is called power grossness. There's different things that form impressions, like these things called samskaras, and the stuff that's hardest to clean is power grossness, and that's having an ability that you're not using, right? Like you have a God-given ability and you refuse to use it, or you don't use this gift to help humanity, whatever it is. Like we all have something to contribute. We all have something to give to our, brothers and sisters and do this work for God, on a soul path, and not utilizing those talents and gifts for their designated purpose is the hardest thing to clean, because, it's something that you were supposed to do for God, and it's a power, like there's power in it. And so when it solidifies into a lack of use, it's almost impossible to clean from a person's spiritual system. And so, I've talked about power grossness before in my Journey series. But of course, being an underachiever for me partially was because I'm over this. I was over this system as a kid, the American system. And so being successful in the American system was not my, was not my thing. It wasn't my purpose or whatever, but I certainly had abilities and things I wasn't using, which have now been utilized in the Sajmark, because of me doing the Sajmark system. So I'm well aware that, I was blessed. Like it was something I couldn't do on my own, which is a good thing. Like it's not humble, it's not humility, it's like actual fact. It's not fake, being humble. It's like I know what I was before and I know like what I've been able to become since. And, I've put effort into it. It isn't like I haven't done anything. But without the system and the blessings of the, Charji, the third master of the system, and the divine hierarchy of spiritual beings that are, watching over this, people who are embarking on this spiritual journey. And so, like that's what's important because you have to feel good about yourself, not like self-love kind of way, but knowing that you're like doing what you're supposed to do and that you're doing it for the right reasons. We all struggle with that. Like it's, when you're not doing it, you should be aware of it and correct it. Right. And so, the chase of fame and fortune and political power is a false goal. It leads to misery of the people and that are embarking on it and the other people who are following you, like as a fan of a celebrity. So more isn't better, right? The beast corrupts people. When you have success with a beast, the beast uses you for its own, demonic purposes, right? To keep, a system that is far away from the divine will and the divine order. So anyways, like I'm going to talk about this Tucker Carlson thing now in a different way because of that. Like this is, sort of an intro to that and this stuff with Trump as well. Anyways, let's get to it. So this video was entitled "The Left, the Psychological Diagnosis," and back when Tucker Carlson wanted to cancel you. And this was from 4 years ago, 2021. So Tucker was becoming a truther. He was starting to be viewed as a truther. People were sending me shit from Tucker. And I want to remind people that he used to be against us, right? In a very, well, here's the clip. You think is bad. Do you think this unreasonable person that you dislike and you have all these negative feelings for, crazy, all the things that you can think about the opposition, do you think that person's going to say, oh, yeah, you're right? Tell me more, please, person who I believe is crazy and stupid and unhinged, right? I mean, he covers the division all the time. And so what you're looking for is a fight. That's the only reason to say something. You want to be, a Karen. You're going to end up on, video somewhere, right? You're going to end up, or in some kind of altercation. It could escalate or whatever it is. And so this is the actions of a newbie. I'm not saying Tucker Carlson's a truther, but he is, flirted with the truth, and I'll come back to this point. But there was a time not so long ago where Tucker Carlson was saying that people in the truth community, people like me and you, many of you, people like me, certainly back then, should be canceled. He wanted me and other people canceled, and he was very, adamant about it. So this is something from 2012, where Tucker Carlson was interviewed by that guy, Adam versus the Man. And he was asked about a big event that happened in 2001. And this is what he said.
I believe anything if there's evidence, but there isn't any. So knock it off. That's my view.
So first he says, knock it off. And there was a ton of evidence. I mean, there's so much evidence to this specific issue. You can't see it anymore. So let me stop here. So he's going to now after I did this, I don't know, a few months after he came out, I don't know when he came out, sometime after I made this video again, 2021. He came out and said, kind of apologized, like he knew this tape was out there. And like I said, I can't find this. I didn't look under a 2012 event. I want to get the whole clip because, I have just a partial clip of it here. I cut some things out because in 2021 you couldn't talk about things as much as you can now. So I like anything where he's talking about 9/11 here, but I don't allow, I don't have him say those words because they were banning anybody who just said 9/11, like they were demonetizing or whatever, right? This is, kind of fucked up as everything was back then, the censorship with Joe Biden. But, he, to say knock it off, right? Like, who the fuck are you to say knock it off, right? Like, let's knock it off, right? Anymore, it's, a banned subject, but back then, we were all covering this event. He was telling us all to knock it off. So that was part of him. That was the beginning. He says something even more damning about wanting to cancel all of us. But he was saying there was no evidence, and there was a lot. He just didn't want to see it or hear it. He was at a Ron Paul event, and he was, talking about this fringe group, what was considered a fringe group, but wasn't really. And now, he's catering to people like that, right? He's changed his tune.
I hate that. And by the way, I am open to almost any crackpot theory about anything. It's just on that subject, come on. You know what I mean? That's too much. That even for me.
He's open up to any crackpot theory on any subject, but now he's changed his tune. You understand this. But he was part of the establishment, and that this is where he was back in 2012. So part of what I'm saying here before you get back into this thing, I'm interrupting my own thing. I'm interrupting myself. And so, like what I was trying to say in the introduction, what I didn't say this, but that was leading to this part. And I've said this over and over again, that people who got it right in the beginning, and I was one of them, right? And, people like this is important to me because this subject of 9/11 was my, in terms of being a truther, my waking up moment. But I woke up as a spiritual person, which is even more important than that, in 1993. And my brother had told me some things, and I had other people. My ex had stuff about faxes, and my brother had stuff about the Federal Reserve. My brother was an early old school truther from the Vietnam era. He had his own radio show. And I had my own, I was 10 years old or something. I did a report on how the Civil War, I found this book that was an adult book that said the Civil War was not about slavery, it was about economics. They didn't care about the slaves in the North. They cared about the fact the South was kicking their ass economically. And that was my first sort of alternative media truther. I've turned in this report. I wish I could go read it. Like, I don't know where it is and what, how, they probably don't keep those things. But that was my first time. Like, I just found this truther book in the library. I went to the library quite a bit. When I was a little kid, I used to read, books on animals and things. I was like, wanted to be a naturalist. But anyways, when you're here first, or you're here when you're here in earlier than other people, and you continually grow, because some people just stay stagnant in their stupid views, like they haven't changed at all as being a truther. But when you're evolving, you're always going to be ahead of somebody like this, right? Let's say Tucker Carlson was a real truther. Well, why would people listen to him than people like me, right? Because he's way behind the curve. Like this is where he was in 2012, and then like recently, he's had these various moments of clarity, but just because he has a show on Fox doesn't make him more valuable in the truth community than the rest of us. In fact, it makes him less valuable. But people in the truth community love celebrities. It's really sad. They bash celebrities, they bash mainstream media, but if one of them acknowledges their beliefs, they bow before them, and it's like just a sickness. Like how many people are now Tucker Carlson people? When he's, great if you want to apologize, and great if you want to open up to these things, but recognize, and when you're going to interview people, well, I'll get into this as we show this interview that's leading to that.
This is a no-win conversation, so I'm not going to continue it. But my macro view is the obvious one, which is the buildings came down because a bunch of nutcases flew a plane into them.
Okay, so are you still supporting Ron Paul?
I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm supporting Ron Paul. I like Ron Paul. I've always liked Ron Paul.
So, are you supporting anybody in the race this year?
No, I don't support. I don't even.
You're
vote
an objective
someone.
journalist.
I don't even vote. I'm hardly objective. I'm honest. I'm not objective.
Certainly not afraid to speak your mind.
No, I'm not. No, you can assess my views. Are very clear. No, I'm not. No, you can assess my views. Are very clear.
You have any
But
message?
I hate that 11 crap. Wish they just kick those people out. Wish they just kick those people out. Wish they just kick those people out.
So, what do you mean kick them out?
I don't know. Whatever.
he tried to walk it back, right? He realized he spoke what back then would have not been considered cancel culture, but that's what he was saying. That people who believed in this, so-called beep truth thing, right? This I self-beeped, this truth movement that was happening back then, and I was among them. I had made videos about this, and and I was at a different stage of my own whatever development and dealing with all these things, right? But he was saying that people like me should be kicked out. People like me should be canceled. He wanted to shut us all up. And now he's trying to be one of us. So let's go to this other piece here, because that's the important part. And then it'll get more clear from here. Okay, so YouTube recommended this video. And let's just play the introduction here.
We recorded the interview you're about to watch 5 days ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. It's with a former congressman from Pennsylvania called Curt Weldon. Curt Weldon was a very significant figure in Washington 20 years ago. He was not some obscure backbencher. He was one of the most powerful Republicans in the Congress, about to take over the Armed Services Committee, until he asked questions about the official story on 9/11, at which point the Bush administration sent the FBI to his daughter's house, destroyed her life, never charged her with a crime, and effectively got Curt Weldon bounced out of Congress. I haven't talked to him in 20 years. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but this conversation, the one you're about to see, raises far more questions than I ever anticipated. This is not a crazy person. These are not crazy questions. He makes no claims he doesn't have personal firsthand evidence of. When it ended,
It's going to suck. Spoiler alert, it's going to suck.
I asked him how many other officials who were in and around Washington during 9/11 have similar questions. And he said to me, as far as I know, all of them. And he's still in touch with a lot of those people. After this conversation, which again we've been thinking about ever since, I thought it might be time to look a little more deeply into the 9/11 Commission report. Was it accurate? 9/11 changed the United States forever. Those of us who remember it, who lived through it, can tell you this was a different country afterward, completely different, and not a better country.
Okay, so he's going to say that he's going to do a 5-part series on this. So I watched this introduction, and I didn't have time to watch the video. But I'm like, all right, I'm going to, I knew he's a piece of shit. Now, people say he works for the CIA, and that's, whatever. And he's, disinformation. And, it's not my fucking job to cleanse the truth community. Like, if something comes across my, this was recommended to me, and comes across, my, whatever it is, it's brought to my consciousness, and I was interested in it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch it, and it's fucking horrible. I mean, it is really bad. And anything to do with 9/11, because that's what woke me up, right, to being a truther. So, more than any of these other things. Like, everyone has their thing. Some of it's Pizzagate, somebody it's the school shooting stuff, some of it's the, whatever it is, like these things. And whatever that thing is for you, whatever your introductory thing into the truth community is, it always kind of stings a little bit. Another thing for me is Libya. I was there when we invaded Libya, and it just made me feel like, I had an emotional reaction. Saj Marg, they had become an NGO for the, my spiritual organization. They became an NGO, and I got into it with some of the senior people who are just fucking stupid, and now they're the people that are surrounding Dodgy, taking the system, down, degrading it, the whole thing. Like, that was so that's a big thing for me too. Things that are, personal, and the first thing, that first thing when you want to see the truth brought out, you want to see something, and it's just always there. It's like a little bit like of an open wound, and so for me, not so much, because of the years have gone by, and I've reconciled. There's no pathway to success here. The people in the system are never going to acknowledge it, right? When Tucker Carlson's now on the outskirts of the the mainstream people, even fought for Fox and those fucks. But like, I still have interest in it, and it's the big event that should have the 9/11 event 2001 should have woke people up. At least it should be the number one thing, because of its implications, like how many people died from the bullshit wars that happened afterwards, right? Like how much bad stuff happened. And so, I was interested in it. So he's going to bring this guy out, and the guy's a fucking clown. He's like Alex Jones, but a legitimate congressman. He yells the whole time. Like when Alex Jones gets triggered and he just starts yelling. And, I'll do my imitation of Alex Jones at some point, hopefully, if I have these things bookmarked. And I don't know how much of this shit I can use with Tucker Carlson. I don't know any of this stuff. But this one, it convinced me he's just a bigger piece of shit than, I usually am kind of positive towards people who make even just a little bit of an adjustment towards being more of a truther. Because if they're going in the right direction, then who's for me to say what their process is, right? Even if they're a paid shill, somebody who's done damage like Alex Jones, well, that's something different. But Tucker Carlson's doing damage, and this damage could possibly include World War III. Because this guy's going to come out and fucking blame Iran. So let's get to that part. So let's fast forward here a little bit. So he just looks like a complete tool. And I want, this is why I was trying, well, let's listen to this guy and I'll come back to that.
Former person from the Swedish area, but he's a U.S. citizen. And I said, how can I help you? Congressman Murphy asked me to help. Ron Klink wants me to help. He said, Congressman, I want you to help me get into Iran. I said, why do you want to go to Iran? He said, that's where bin Laden is. I said, why would you tell me that bin Laden's in Iran? He said, I was a knock for the agency. Do you know what a knock is?
Yeah, non-official cover.
That's right. He said, I was a knock for the agency, and I worked that area. And my friends are seeing bin Laden in Iran. If you help me get to Tehran, I'll leave my identity there. I'll get a piece of him, dead or alive, and I'll bring it back. At the time, there was a $25 million reward for bin Laden. I said, I can't help you right now because I'm in a battle over this follow-up to 9/11. Then I get another call, Tucker.
I get another call. This guy ends up screaming throughout the whole thing. Like this is his soft voice.
From the Interior Department. My falconers are seeing bin Laden's birds flying in Iran.
He's got his birds. His bin Laden's birds are over there in Iran. In Iran they are.
You help me go to Iran, they'll accept me there because they know me. I'll tag his birds, and I'll take the U.S. to exactly where he is. That's four full source identities that bin Laden was exactly where my intel people said he was. Over the course of time, Tucker, I developed 10 silver bullets. They wanted to do a movie about me after they took me out, and I'll get to when they took me out.
Okay, so at this point, I was going to stop listening and just talk about what a piece of shit this guy was in Tucker Carlson. Now, this guy walks it back a little bit, which is, the first part I'm thinking is, well, so Iran thing is stupid. It's stupid for this reason, that bin Laden is Sunni. He comes from a Sunni family. The Saudi Arabians and the Iranians don't get along because they're Shiite. And the Shiite and the Sunni hate each other as much as they hate Jews, right? They've had all these bloodthirsty battles. So they have two types of Muslims, Sunni and Shiite. And Iran is Shiite and Saudi Arabia is Sunni, like I said. So bin Laden wouldn't be welcome there. And, for them to imply that Iran was involved with this. So, he says that all these people, and I'll try to get to that, I'll get to that point here as well, where he says all these people are trying to keep it secret that bin Laden's in Iran. And so why would they do that, right? Like, why would they do that? Like, why would they keep it secret in Iran? Because Iran has always been, the neocons have a hard-on for Iran. John Bolton, all these people. There was this thing that happened with, you guys remember the Wesley Clark, and I'm not going to show you this video, but I've showed it so much, where he's on PBS or one of those Democracy Now! Or one of those, sort of semi-liberal truther type of things. And he talks about how he went to the Pentagon. He's a former chief of staff, and some guy showed him a plan they had in place after 9/11 where they were going to invade 7 countries in 5 years. So it was Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, of course, Somalia, Libya, of course, right, because those things did happen, Sudan, and Iran. And I might be missing one. But it's all the countries that they tried to invade or invaded 4 of those countries. So they had a plan to do all this that had nothing to do with 9/11, but they looked at, which meant that they knew this stuff was going to happen. So this is the neocons. And Iran was the big one. They were always trying to get Iran. That's the big one because these guys are all Zionist, Israeli shills. And we know that, if anybody had anything to do with it from a foreign country, I mean, Saudi Arabia, sure, but really Israel. And there's all this evidence, the 5 dancing Israelis, and these things that you can go look up, right? These guys who videotaped the event, they had a big, camera on a tripod, and they were dancing around. They were from Israel, and they had $7,000 in their sock, and they were stopped by this cop. And they said, no, you don't want us. You want the Palestinians, because Palestine did this. They were saying that to the cop, right? This cop reported, and he wasn't a truther. He just reported what he heard. But these guys were acting suspicious. They were driving around in a van, and people saw them videotaping the buildings. They had a camera on the buildings before it happened. And so, there's all this evidence. And I've talked about it being a nuclear event, all these things. I have my own things of it. I've developed, what I believe is one of the most compelling or, closest to the truth theories that you'll hear out there about this. And I, back it up with the idea that there was, radioactive iodine creates thyroid cancer, and all the first responders got more thyroid cancers than they did in Chernobyl. Like, I'm the one who kind of broke that story in terms of this one guy, Dmitry Halasov's opinion about being a nuclear bomb, right? This stuff. But, there's, these are just the whatever. Like, these are, like, I have, this kind of stuff I've been thinking about and seeing for years. I've watched a lot of videos on it that other truthers made, and I've come up with my own, analysis. And not that I would want to go on Tucker Carlson's show or be any part of him or these other people, right? But he's asking this fucking ass clown who's a senator, and he's like just, promoting this idea of Iran. Now, let's say Trump, who watched Tucker Carlson, is buddies with Tucker Carlson. Like, if this is fake and this is a stage thing, and this was perpetrated in 2001, and you're now just getting some truth out of it in 2025 after all the censorship and all the bullshit, and Tucker Carlson wanting to cancel us in 2012, we should just disappear, and like you should be, he wanted to, violate our First Amendment rights. So fuck him, right? That piece of shit. And even if he walks it back now, he's doing it in like the douchiest way, also saying that Trump's fake assassination attempt was real, right? And so, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is doing damage to the truth community. Like, he's not on our side or anybody's side because this is not, it's bullshit, right? It's fucking... Anyways, let me find the next piece here. So then the guy gets into how they, when he started asking questions about 9/11, they investigated his daughter. They made a big story that his daughter was corrupt. They never charged her with anything. And then they gave millions of dollars to his opponent, who was a Clinton Democrat guy, even though these were Republican George W. Bush people. And, he has this whole story. And he does a lot of shouting like here.
He said, Congressman, you were a great member. Everyone respected you, but you made one fundamental mistake. I said, what was that, John? He said, when you come to this city, you're either on one rail or the other rail. And you went down the middle and took on both rails. I said, well, John, I didn't pledge allegiance to the Republican Party. Yeah. I pledged allegiance to the Constitution. You guys were ecstatic when I took on the Clintons, when I took on Sandy Berger, when I took on the scumbags and what they did with Chuck.
You guys were ecstatic when you took on the Clintons. Buy my tangerine. So he's got this Alex Jones kind of thing going. Like, he just, it gets worse as the thing goes on here.
That's what America needs to hear. They need members of Congress who don't become duped by scumbags in the intelligence agency making money for themselves. And you know what, Tucker? I challenge them. I'll name them, and I'll give their dollar amounts of where they're making money today.
I challenge those scumbags. Those scumbags who took me out of Congress.
In the countries that we're at war with.
Countries that we were at
They
war
care
with.
about
Those countries.
themselves and their power. They don't care about the lives of the kids that we send to war. I saw it in Libya. I saw it in North Korea. I led delegations that were bipartisan to all of those places. They took it out on my daughter.
So I just want to get
So this is where, I want to watch this part here.
one more time to the question of who was hiding the fact that bin Laden was actually in Iran. And
Our intelligence agencies, they have plausible deniability. In the end, I have 10 silver bullets.
Okay, so he had asked that, Tucker Carlson asked that question before. And his first answer was the Clintons, which the Clintons weren't in power at the time. So this is, 2006's and whatever it was, post 9/11. and he goes on this long rant, and now he's saying the intelligence community was hiding this stuff about bin Laden being in Iran. So the intelligence community and the neocons were at war. Remember, for a brief period of time, CIA was pissed off at Dick Cheney and his cronies for outing some of their agent, Valerie Plame, and some of these other people, and working them to get information about evading Iraq that they knew didn't have weapons of mass destruction. And they were pressuring the CIA to come up with something to justify these wars, right? And so, why would they stash him away in Iran if they knew these neocons wanted to go to war with Iran? So the intelligence community is very pissed off at the whole Bush team, the Dick Rumsfeld and the Dan Cheneys, John Cheneys, the Dick Cheney and the Donald Rumsfelds and all these other guys. And they pressured them, and they got burned because they looked bad when there was no weapons of mass destruction. And they had a plan, the Pentagon had a plan to invade all these countries, and Iran was the big one. Iran has always been the goal. So they started off Iraq, and they went into Afghanistan. They started off Afghanistan, went to Iraq. They did Libya. They did these other countries. And so, like I was saying, if Trump listened to this, and Trump has a hard-on for Iran too because he's an Israeli shill, and he's been, bad-mouthing Iran, saying that Iran was behind his assassination attempt. And so if he comes out and says, guess what, he was in Iran, bin Laden, if Trump used this as another justification for World War III because Iran has an alliance with Russia. And so, Tucker Carlson's a real piece of shit because Iran makes no sense in any of these things when it was clearly, if this guy's saying, which he is, and Tucker Carlson is saying that he believes this to be a possibility because he wants to do a 5-part series on this, there was a massive cover-up. Well, then they used this event, right? And this guy, says that he knew ahead of time that this was going to happen because they had intelligence on Mohammed Atta and all those other guys. And so isn't it more likely it was just an inside false flag job? Because if they used this anyway if their goal was to go to war here, doesn't a false flag make more sense when Al-Qaeda is translated to the list? Because bin Laden was always a CIA operative. He was always working with the CIA. So, again, he was empowered by the CIA, trained by the CIA. He was a part of that wealthy family connected to the big oil money. And so, all this stuff doesn't make sense, right, as an explanation. And see, this is what I was talking about. There's those of us who know. We're not, official journalists, and we're not celebrities, and we're not anything but, average people who just look into what's going on in common sense. And I broke, some of the stories, like this bullshit thing about thermite I exposed and some of these other things, later on. And I was an avid viewer of 9/11 videos and things back when YouTube used to have them. And so Tucker Carlson's going to go on his own goofy fucking CIA-sponsored bullshit tour of how he's going to get to the bottom of 9/11. It's going to suck because he sucks and this guy sucks and they all, they're all shills and they're all connected to the establishment. Anybody connected to the political establishment can't come out and tell the truth about such things. They won't. They'll circle around it, but they'll never get to the absolute truth. And this is the beginning. That big event, 9/11, was the beginning to all this bullshit stuff that happened afterwards. all these wars, illegal wars, and then all the rest of these things that have, that it's linked to now COVID, and it's a series of, what I consider controlled events that are there to destabilize the country from, what is now to what it's going to be in the future, transitional, motivational, we've had these issues that you're going to lose some of your lifestyle. It's not our fault, right? Remember what they said when it happened, when 9/11 happened. They're trying to take away our freedoms, and what freedom means is your lifestyle. They don't like our freedoms, and that's not it at all. We're a big empire, an evil empire, which Trump will get into Trump and the fucking tariff thing, and the thing with Amazon and Bezos that happened, after this, and we're like Trump says we're being taken advantage, but we're using 25% of the world's resources. We're 5% of the population. That's what they don't like. They don't like that their shit is being, their resources they're suffering and starving, and we're gorging ourselves, and we're not even happy about it. And I think that we're entitled to more, like Trump saying we should have more. It's fucked up. I get to the Canadian Prime Minister thing. But, that's what I'm saying about all this stuff, that they never get to the truth. And so he's worse than just a regular journalist, because he flirts with the truth community and people gravitate to him, and certainly the right-wing people, and he validates shit like Trump's bogus assassination attempt. Like anybody who claims to be a truther and still isn't, I don't want to say apologizing, but coming correct on the whole, fake assassination for Trump, which is clearly what it is now. And Trump's an absolute bozo, which we'll get to in a moment, because of the way he handled this Jeff Bezos thing.
He calls you my dear. You were right. I said about.
He calls him his dear. Hey, my dear.
About what? He said about a lot of things, but you're right about Bin Laden. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he was placed in Iran and Baluchistan. He said, I said, he said, he said, yes, I know that. He said, I was in the room when the deal was cut. So the U.S. has plausible deniability that they weren't in the room.
Was the point to get to Iraq?
The point was to the point was to manipulate, to get our troops committed, to go over to fight the battles in Afghanistan, Iraq, and that whole region of the world.
Yes.
And they had to have the justification to do that.
I believe it.
But in the end, when 5 years ago, and even Trump doesn't know this, I'm sure, we killed someone that Trump took great credit for, and I applaud him for it. And he said, we killed this guy.
Soleimani?
That's right. Soleimani was the guy the deal was cut with. The deal was not cut with the Iranian government. And we need to understand that. And this is the heart of what we have to get to. The Iranian people are not our enemy.
Okay, so, him saying this was a little bit better. Like, up into this, I was like, oh, this is fucked. And it is fucked. It's not, he softens it a little bit by saying that it wasn't the Iranians. But just linking bin Laden and 9/11 to Iran is already a problem, because we're very close to war with Iran. Israel wants to bomb them, all these things. And even him saying that, because that's not what people are going to take away from this. And, all these right-wing truthers that are going to lap this stupid shit up. And they're not truthers, right-wing fake truthers. Because you can't be a right-wing truther. You can't be a left-wing truther. That's against the whole idea of being a truther. If you're going to be honest, this is, truther is just a term for someone who's being honest. And you're looking to be honest about what's going on with our country and the world. When it comes to politics, both sides have to be controlled. If you're going to say there's a shadow government, it's not one deep state. This guy uses the term deep state all the time. All these deep state right-wing fuckheads, it's all a deep state, or none of it is. It can't be partially a deep state. It can't be any of those types of, things where there's good guys and bad guys. Like, that can't be what it is. It's either everybody's controlled. The controlled system is controlled. There isn't like, oh, there's some good guys in there. No, there's no good guys. Everyone has to be controlled. Everybody with a microphone, everybody with any sort of power has to be controlled. And so even this guy who's just, some loudmouth, Republican who went after the Clintons and they liked him when he was playing the left-right, was in the middle of the left-right paradigm. But when he went after and asked hard questions about 9/11, they got rid of him. That's his story. Well, that's what happens to people who, just deviate from even the slightest bit. This guy's certainly not a truther. And so there's no truthers, there's no honesty in the government. There's people who know what's going on and they just accept it. And the other part of this, which nobody in the truth community, as far as I know, acknowledges, if you went after and got the deep state, then the whole system would collapse. If you went after the elite and you took them out, the whole system would collapse. If you brought truth into the government, the system would collapse. If you told the truth about what's going on, the American people in the world would lose faith in all of it. If you told the truth about 9/11, you told the truth about RFK, or JFK, and these assassinations, and then more recent things, the government, if people realized how much they're being lied to and how much they're being manipulated, they would lose faith in the whole system. In fact, they couldn't believe it. They would collapse and curl up in the fetal position. They couldn't handle it, and so you can't handle the truth. I mean, that's a true thing, and so being able to understand the nature of our system, which is, evil and goes against God's will, once you understand that shit, then you understand that that's how the system runs. And so as soon as you bring truth or, righteousness or God into the system would collapse, because that's what should happen to the system, right? If you bring truth and light into any dysfunctional thing, it collapses. If you bring truth and light into like a family, they're able to limp along and they're really dysfunctional, it's abusive. But then you bring a therapist into their family, even if the therapist sucks or, is just partially good, and some of the truth comes out about the family, then, the family implodes, right? I mean, and again, that the family's a lot easier to fix than a country. It's an easier system to fix. But when you bring truth and light into something that's evil, then that thing dies, and that's our system. And these people, the CIA and these politicians, do evil shit all the time. Sometimes it's unnecessary, but sometimes it's totally necessary to keep the system going. And I say that, the truth community is pointless if you think it's about waking up everybody and changing the system. The only thing the truth could do is bring the system down. And it's going to happen anyway. We don't have to do that because the system's imploding of its own accord. And so, it's like this is just all silliness, right? Like people don't really want to know they're being lied to because they know already, right? It's like, your spouse is cheating on you and you're like, well, I don't want to be alone or whatever, so you just ignore it or something like that. And so, these pieces of shit like Tucker Carlson and all these people who are kind of like halfway truthers, Trump flirted with the truth community. What they're doing is seeing that there's people who understand that they're being lied to. And so they're using that to manipulate people, but they're not going to bring the truth out because they don't want to destroy the system. They have powerful positions within the system. They're happy with their lifestyle. There's not that many people want to destroy the system. Most people in the truth community think that you can make it better, but you can't. And so that's where you got to figure out, well, what does it mean then? We now know we're being lied to. We know that the system is completely fucked. So then what do we do? And that's, pockets of the future. That's the idea that we start preparing now for the inevitable collapse. And it could be in 20 years, but it's still there. It's still a possibility. I mean, it could be happening tomorrow, and it's going to happen, not in just one big, it's over kind of thing. There'll be degrees of it. And, I know it's going to collapse because they're telling us it's going to collapse. How many post-apocalyptic and apocalyptic movies and TV shows are there? How many TV shows featuring zombies and ghouls and all these types of things, right? And, they're talking about a reduction in lifestyle, and they've put this plan on the table, whether it be the climate change stuff or any number of these other things, the population issues, food crises. There's all these things that are there, and they keep on basically saying in no uncertain terms that your lifestyle is not sustainable. And when you look at the debt, Elon Musk, who is now completely out of Doge and being kicked out of as CEO of Tesla, so he's completely fucked either way, right? The guy's out in both accounts, and didn't do shit for Doge. They didn't get $1 trillion, and $1 trillion is just the amount of interest we pay every year on a debt that can never be paid off. We're going to have to default on the debt. They're saying it. We won't be able to pay Social Security. There's no money in the coffers, right? At some point in the near future, they're going to say, Social Security's done. Medicaid's done. That's going to cause widespread panic. And guess what? That $2 million you saved for your retirement is worth dick. You can buy 3 loaves of bread because inflation's so fucking bad, right? So, and then there's, well, we got to get rid of the old people because they're just a drain on the system. And then there's like, well, we better stop having babies, because, all these reasons. And this stuff will just, it's already there in the World Economic Forum. You'll own nothing and you'll like it in 5 years. That's the goal. In 5 years, you'll own nothing and like it. And would you like that now, today? So what's going to happen between now and 5 years from now? And so it's part of a plan, but it's also part of the divine will. I mean, it's the divine will that's being executed by, people who are deceiving themselves, thinking they're going to save their position and power. The people in the controllers, I call them, right? That they're part of it because they have no choice, because they realize this thing has to happen. They wouldn't do it. They don't like change themselves. So the fact that they have to implement these changes means that they're desperate. And so, there's all these things. But something like this, it's never going to be covered in a real way because they can't tell them, the normal person. I mean, people listen, Tucker Carlson already are a little bit over the edge. But, they can't tell the truth. Not in a real way. Because they would say exactly what I'm saying. Right? That's why, I don't have a microphone in terms of the story. Because, it's not something they want people to hear. But even if they hear it, it isn't going to fucking make a difference. Everyone could hear everything I'm saying right now. And, whoever believes it, believes it. But it's still, even if you believe it, you're not going to do shit. You're going to sit there and just watch it unfold. You're not going to, attempt to connect to the divinity within you, which is the first thing and most important thing to do. You're not going to gain some sort of skills and even store fucking extra food. Like people, after COVID, you think people would have learned they should have like 3 months worth of food in their house just to, get settled down before. I mean, like 3 or 4 months, depending on where you live, you need to be able to get through a winter. If the collapse happens in November, you need to get through a winter before you can start growing food. And all the other things, that needs to be done. And even then, it takes a while for the food to grow. So, you need more like a year's worth of food. But most people can't do that. But even just have some to figure out your next move. Because once you start starving, you're going to leave your house. And then you're just fucking, you're just waiting for the call. You're getting in line to be called. When people leave their house, they'll run to the government because that's all they know. They'll go to FEMA camps and then they'll just line you up and figure out how to dispose of you. I mean, if there's any real, if this thing happens the way that it looks like, the way it's shaping out, that's what's going to happen. And so all these people who kind of are aware that this could happen, like how many of you are doing like anything about it other than just watching, right? And so, there's no, I mean, some people are going to survive. There are going to be some pockets of the future or there won't be. But like, it's going to be a rare few that are able to manage to adjust themselves enough to deal with the collapse. So then he has his Alex Jones moments here.
If you want to come after me publicly.
Wait, let's go back a little bit more.
They're scumbags.
Oh, I know.
You scumbag, if you want to come after me publicly.
That's not how scumbags work. By the very definition of scumbags, you don't go after people publicly. Like being a scumbag means you're underhanded.
But if you're going to hide and go do something behind somebody, which you do, now there are good people in the agency, but there are scumbags that work in our agencies.
And scumbags! Who wants my tangerine? I'll play my Alex Jones memes in a sec.
Know them, and they're making money. They're $1 million people. And their $1 million companies are going to be exposed if it's the last thing I do.
Last thing I do, I'm going to take care of them. Scumbags. Scumcat makes money. It's good to be a scumbag.
Well, their companies make money. And I'll give you example after example of that. In Russia, in Ukraine, around the world, in Libya. That's what's wrong. And until we understand that, it's not going.
So, he has this Alex Jones thing. The guy spends almost the whole time just ranting and raving, and he goes, like Tucker Carlson tries to redirect him. But, like he doesn't give specific information of who hid bin Laden in Iran and what they were doing, why would they hide him there, right? Because hiding him there, there's always a chance he'd get caught there. And then it's war with Iran, and that's World War III. But again, they had the 7 countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, I believe Egypt was one of them, Somalia, the Sudan, and finally Iran. And this is what, Wesley Clark, who was a Democrat, said he was told, that they had these, he was told this before they went into Iraq, because he was like, why are we going into Iraq? That has nothing to do with 9/11. And this guy said, sir, it's way worse than that, because he used to be his boss. And he said, can I show you this? He goes, it's classified. He goes, no, don't show it to me because I can't talk about it then. And he went and talked about it, and it disappeared. Like, nobody cares, that these guys had a plan to go into 7 countries in 5 years. They got to 4 of them. Like, it always ends, like they suffer the same thing everyone else does. It doesn't work out for them. Often, more times than not, it doesn't work out for them because they have bullshit plans. They get to do, like the tariffs. Like things like work out, they can do it for a little bit. Then everyone's like, you're fucked in the head. This is a bad thing. And it's like just, and then if they never get held to the account of all the damage it does. Like think about all the young, the children in countries where they're living on the margin that now because of the tariffs, they can't get money from America with exports. And it cuts into their, whatever it is, right? And, their economy. And there's going to be kids starving all over the world because of this. Because Trump's a fucking dumbass, fucking, piece of shit. I mean, like all this stuff. And Tucker Carlson supports him. And so let's get into the Trump thing here.
You know what it's like to go to sleep every night knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers and you bastards are probably going to end up killing me one day? You know what it's like knowing you've ruined my life? You know what it's like, you sons of bitches? I'm tired of your crap!
You know what it's like to go to sleep every day knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers that's probably going to kill you one day? You bastards, you ruined my life. I want to quit. I want my 401k. Let me get out of this contract.
Percent will buy a goddamn tube of toothpaste or or incredible products we've got. Go to DrJonesNaturals.com. I'm not bitching. I'm like, you want a revolution, man. You want victory. You want fucking war against fucking terrorists. You fucking got people that are ready to fight, man. I mean, I'm fucking completely war-driven against these people. I've got my earpiece out. I am completely...
Only 1% of my viewers are willing to buy my products. You want effing war? You want to fight this tyrannists? You want to fight them, these MNFers? You want to fight them? You got to buy my products. Buy my MNF products. Buy those products. I need those products sold. I knocked out my freaking earpiece. I hit my head so hard trying to sell my products. I mean, fight tyranny.
I don't know how you follow that.
I'm just telling you, man, I am not taking it lying down. I don't know how to do it. I'm not built to suck your dick. I'm not built to bend. I'm built for war, motherfucker. And I will not bow to you. I will God damn you assholes, man.
I'm so sad. I'm so sad. I don't know what happened to me. I'm so sad. I'm not built to suck your boop. I'm not built for it. I've had to learn how to do it. I'm built for war, even though I'm folding my tent and going home. I've given up. I've quit, but I'm built for war. You effing assholes. You effing
Who's up next?
effing assholes. Who's up next?
This is a human. This is what we look like. This is what we act like. This is what everybody was like before us. This is what I am. I'm a throwback. I'm here. I've got the fire of human liberty. I'm setting fires everywhere.
This is a shill. This is what we look like. This is what we act like. This is how you make $165 million. I'm COINTELPRO. I work for the CIA. I'm cutting you out of your money. I'm cutting you out of your money everywhere. We're at war. I've declared bankruptcy. I'm broke. I need your help right now. My body's full of cholesterol, and there's a strange growth on my scrotum. There's only one way to fight this madness, to win this war. You need to buy my products, and you need to do it now before my head explodes. My blood pressure is too high. I'm on the verge of being thrown out by Illuminati, and they've canceled my gym membership, and I need your money and your support now. I just made a stinky. Roger?
Okay, so this broke 2 days ago, and I wanted to cover both these things. I did the long video on, I was doing the spiritual gathering. I didn't want to get into this thing during that. I was working outside. So it was nice to take a break from all this stuff. And, still, but I want to get this done. Like I could not do this today as well, but it has to be done. Now or never. To make a video on it. And, it's no big deal if I make a video or not, because it's not going to change, the whole thing. But this thing happened with Trump and Amazon. Then it came out that might be a hoax or fake news. But, this is where it started here.
These tariffs and this new Amazon move just last hour, what did they say?
Yeah, on the tariffs more broadly, you heard some optimism that there could be trade deals struck in the not too distant future from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who talked about the use of what he called euphemistically the president's strategic uncertainty in his negotiating position over time here.
Just remember that, with Trump doing this, that all these countries, when they're in a better position with more leverage, and the ones that are, like China has a lot of leverage, they can renegotiate these deals themselves. Like they can say, fuck you, we're breaking the last deal. We're going to charge tariffs, and you guys got to come to the table. So, America, whatever leverage we have now that Trump's utilizing, it's not going to benefit the American people, and it's going to fuck a lot of American businesses, especially the small ones. This will be good for corporate America and the billionaire club and Trump people. But it can all be, they're going to have no loyalty, and they're all going to carry a grudge against America, regardless if it was Trump's bullshit. They don't care, right? And so if they get an opportunity to stick it to America, they will, right? Like, especially now.
On Amazon, in this report that Amazon might start listing the additional cost on specific items put in place by the tariffs, the president is clearly angry. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said she had spoken to him about it this morning. And the idea that this shows factually that it is American consumers who pay the cost of tariffs, not the Chinese or any other foreign government, seemed to be the thing that set off the president's anger. Listen to how the White House Press Secretary addressed this issue.
So if you went to Amazon and went to buy something, and then it showed you how much extra was going to cost you because of tariffs, that would completely fuck Trump. And if they did that at stores, if they put the price before tariffs or without tariffs on the food, that would generate anger. People would realize that Trump was fucking them. And Trump's reaction to that is this
issue.
I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years?
Okay, so there's two different things there. This is fucking childish thinking that is for children. So what she's saying there is it's a hostile political act, but they're not saying that what he's doing is lies. So what they're admitting to here, Trump and her, and this fucking robot behind her, this fucking guy, right? They're admitting right now that it's going to cost the American people more, which is admitting that they've been lying to everybody, that the tariffs aren't going to be paid by the Chinese. Of course they're not. They're not going to be paid by the country and the companies. They're going to be paid by American people. You're putting a tax that you're going to pay on groceries and things, anything that's imported, that's going to raise prices for you. And so, how much the prices are raised is debatable, but it's going to cost you more money. And they've been downplaying that or pretending that isn't true. But they're now admitting it. And for her, this is the childish part. I mean, that's the lie part, but here's the childish part. Joe Biden's inflation was the result of them pressuring Trump to close down the economy and just the overall shittiness of the economy. Inflation happens all the time. But there's a difference between, like, it's hard to calculate inflationary, like if Amazon was going to say, this is the price before inflation, that would be stupid because they're encouraging you to not buy something. They're pointing out that things have gotten more expensive. So that would be counterintuitive to their business. But now when prices go up, they can, with the tariffs, which is two different things. A tariff is something where they can figure out how much extra it costs something if you put the tariff on it. That's easy to figure out. And when people don't want to buy something because it's too expensive, you say, all right, this is the tariff price. And, it also puts pressure on the government then, people getting outraged, to get rid of the tariffs, which is what all these people want. Amazon sells a bunch of shit from, imported shit. So they want the tariffs gone because people are going to buy less shit. So it's a good business move. And so it's, it's smart. They're not going to do it because Trump talked them out of it or made some deal with them because they're all fucked and they're all scumbags, right? But, they're admitting to the fact that this is, tariffs are going to cost you more money and they want to cover it up. Like, that's how fucking scummy he is. And so if you're a Trumper and you like fucking this, this fucking creature here and this fucking robot here, and you think they're doing a great job, and, probably not watching my channel at this point, if you're those people, then you must, look in the mirror and know you're fucked in the head because they're just telling you right now that they want to keep it secret to you how they're fucking you with these tariffs that are going to benefit their rich buddies or maybe benefit nobody at all, but they're going to fuck up the economy and it's going to cost you more money. They've just put a giant tax raise all across the board. And it's going to hit the lowest level of income people because they spend almost all of their disposable income, all their income, on buying shit, and some of it's foreign shit, like at Walmart. And so all those people, rich people put away gobs of money that doesn't go to buying. Like if you put a sales tax on something, it's called a retro tax or whatever they call it. It's a tax for poor people, a regressive tax. It hurts the poorest people. It hurts rich people far less because rich people have a lot of money that they're not spending on goods that are being taxed, on things that have sales tax. So if they spend 5% of their income on things with a sales tax, and you spend 100% of your income, or 70% of your income on a sales tax, then the tax is much higher than you. They're getting a 5% tax increase, and you're getting a 70% tax increase. And a tariff tax is the same thing. It's basically a sales tax.
And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American.
There is no American. There's another stupid thing. Like, you're making it sound like these imported things that we get, if they were American, they'd cost 4 times as much. But a lot of them are just, they're not available. Like, a lot of things that we buy that are imported, it isn't like they're just knockoffs or something that's cheaper. That there's alternatives. The American thing often doesn't exist at all, and so you're going to go without. And so some things are going to be more expensive. Some things aren't even going to be there at all. And so this is their fucking childishness, right? Like they're just horrible people. Like just horrible. But
World called the second richest man in the world directly. President Trump So today we're learning that the most powerful man in the world called the second richest man in the world directly. President Trump reportedly complaining to Jeff Bezos about a report that Amazon, a company Bezos no longer runs, planned to display tariff import charges on the products it sells. A source familiar with the call tells NBC News that it likely came around the same time that the White House publicly slammed the move by Amazon, calling it a hostile and political act. Well, Amazon has since denied the report, now saying that their ultra-low-cost Amazon Haul store, HAUL, considered posting tariff surcharges, but it never was quite approved and never was going to happen. Joining me now is NBC's Christine Romans, New York Times reporter and MSNBC contributor Jeremy Peters is here as well. Look, we know that Bezos and Trump have spent time together in the past, but...
Okay, so this one thing, what this thing did for this brief story when Trump was butthurt was it showed that he is totally aware, and his administration is totally aware, that tariffs are going to cost you more money. That it's an added tax. And so some percentage of your income is now going to tariff tax. It's a tax on fucking you, right? On the Trumpers and the other people. That it's going to drive inflation up, it's fucking up the economy, and it's going to be a tax. And they wanted to do everything possible to cover it up. Because, they know if you knew how much you're getting taxed, again, it's a hidden tax, right? Like when you have a sales tax, you go to the store and it calculates in, and you can look at your receipt and see, oh, this is a sales tax, right? This is how much I paid for this sales tax. Because there's some states that have a high sales tax, right? There's states that don't have an income tax but have a sales tax. But that fucks, it's great if you're a tourist place because people come into your state and they pay this tax. And most people don't, look at their receipt and aren't aware of it, that this is what the state charges. It's better to go to a state that doesn't have a sales tax, right? Like California has like massive sales tax or gas taxes and things like that, right? Again, it's a regressive tax that hurts the poorest people. But Trump is aware of this and it wants to cover it up. So he's fucking you. He's just fucking you right in your fucking face, right? If you're a Trumper, And so you should know that. Like, he just admitted it. The fake Christian Barbie fake truther just admitted it. He knows. They're aware that this is a tax, and they want to do everything to make sure that you don't know. So he's the opposite of a truther. And whatever reason he's doing this, it's like the economy's fucked right now, right? Okay, so this is the newly elected PM of Canada. The other guy was too much of a pussy to deal with Trump, so they had a special election. That's my understanding. If I'm correct, a Canadian person will surely want to correct me on that. Either way, they had this election. And Trump was making fun of the election. He was laughing at it. And this guy comes out and drops this little fucking bomb here.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country.
Never, 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 never.
Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen.
It won't happen. Never. Fuck that guy.
We are once again at one of those hinge moments of history. Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over.
Boom. He's saying there's been a breakup between America and Canada. Again, he's a bullshitter, and this could be a bargaining tactic, whatever reason he's doing this. But this is what's being fucking said. We're 100 days into President Trump's second term, and this is Canada's like saying we're breaking up with you. Like, fucking think about that, right? That's how fucking bad Trump sucks. He's got a trade war with China. I mean, the fucking, he wants to own Gaza. He just said, well, I can just say we own it. I'm claiming it. I'm fucking America. We're the number one country. We're claiming Gaza Strip. I mean, all the things that Trump's done. All the bullshit things he's done, trying to steal Greenland from Denmark, all of the fucking shit he's spread out too thin. He's fucking everything up. Economy's tanking. He's like showing himself as a scumbag and a bozo, like both things. Like he's a dumb one on top of it. And Canada's just like, hey, we're breaking up with you, right? Like he was only 100 days into his fucking second term.
The system of open global trade anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity.
What the fuck is wrong with this guy back here? He's like playing hide and go seek back here. Fuck you doing, bro?
For a country for decades is over.
Look, peekaboo, peekaboo.
These are tragedies, but it's also our new reality.
Dude, no one can see your sign, but your sign, you look like a fucking weirdo. It's like you're spying on somebody, you're peeping Toming them over the fucking, like you're over a fence.
We are over the shock of the American betrayal.
The American betrayal. Fuck, this guy's going strong.
But we should never forget the lessons.
But you're going to take us forward.
You're going to take us forward, though, right? Right? You're forward? Yeah, fuck America, but are we going forward with this thing? How forward are we going? Is this a forward thing or a backward thing? It sounds like a backward thing, so I'm hoping you got some forward shit to say, because it sounds like it's just going to be the same as it was before, except, America's Canada's biggest trading partner. Like, we're each other's biggest trading partners. And so it's going to be a disaster for both countries, and certainly probably more so for Canada, especially this motherfucker back here. But are we going forward?
Have to look out for ourselves. And above all, we have to take care of each other.
Yeah, boom. Boom.
And my message to every Canadian is this. No matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted.
What is it? What are the options? French and English? And Inuit? I mean, what are the options?
I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home.
Boom. Boom. Kick ass. All right. So that's what's up. Fucking, think about that, right? That's how bad Trump's fucking... It'd be one thing if he was playing chess, but he ain't fucking playing chess. Everyone should know by now, Trump's a fucking bozo. He didn't even understand how tariffs work, and now he's trying to save face. And he should just, like, quit. Like, he should just be like, all right, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You guys were all right. Just somebody else deal with the mess I created. And he's just getting into it. He has this press conference thing, a cabinet meeting. I'll cover that in my next video, where the guy was, I haven't watched, I only watched bits and pieces of it, but he finds out the economy's fucked, and he doesn't know what to do. I mean, it's all this stuff, and he's trying to sell everybody. He has these cabinet meetings that everyone praises and talks about how they're doing so great, right? And, it's clearly he's not, right? So Elon Musk, look at this dude. So Elon Musk stepped down from Doge, and it's a failure. And it's a kind of an admitting it's a failure, because it's not like, oh, wow, the next guy is going to be as dynamic and as much power as Elon Musk did. And there's all these legal fights, and it's just turned into a fucking mess. Whatever good that could have came out of that, it isn't going to come out. It's going to be almost nothing. And it's just going to cause a lot of chaos. And, the amount of money that they're going to save, it's going to cost more, like in terms of the government having to spend money on lawsuits and, loss of income and things, and loss of revenue, loss of tax revenue, like all the things with the tariffs. I mean, there's going to be probably $1 trillion Trump's costing America right now to save $150 billion. Like, it's just so fucked. But this happened to Elon.
From the Wall Street Journal just this hour, it's a headline that reads, Tesla board opens search for a CEO to succeed Elon Musk. When you read the story, sources are telling the Journal that Tesla's board members started reaching out to several executive search firms, initiating a formal process to replace Musk. My source joining me tonight is the Wall Street Journal's Emily Glazer, who just broke this reporting.
Okay, so, this is a failure. This guy, he went in there, Tesla's dropping profits, and then the Doge thing's a fucking disaster. This is what happens when you partner with Trump, right? I mean, he got fucked right in the face. Right, Elon? He knows. Elon will tell you. So, look at this dude. Look at this fucking French clown. Like one of those French like a mime or some shit. Holy shit, Mika. What happened, bro?
But we begin with new comments from President Trump defending his administration's decision to send a Maryland man to a prison in El Salvador. In an interview with ABC News yesterday, the president was asked about the wrongful removal of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from the United States. The president denied any mistake was made and dodged questions about following the Supreme Court's order to facilitate his return.
Well, boom, but not today.
The lawyer that said it was a mistake was here a long time, was not appointed by us, should not have said that, And just so you understand, the person that you're talking about, you're making this person sound, this is a MS-13 gang member, a tough cookie, been in lots of skirmishes.
Wait, is he a tough cookie? He's been in skirmishes? This is a tough cookie that's been in a lot of skirmishes. Is he talking about Draymond Green here? Is he going to deport Draymond Green? Or any MMA guy, right? He's a tough cookie. Fucking tough cookie, this guy. No malarkey. This guy's a tough cookie.
This is a MS-13 gang member, a tough cookie, been in lots of skirmishes, beat the hell out of his wife, and the wife was petrified to even talk about him, okay? This is not an innocent, wonderful gentleman from Maryland.
Okay, so there's multiple things wrong with this. First of all, he's lying about the guy, and I'm going to read. I went to the AI chatbot, and I got information about it. So, but the most important thing is he wasn't convicted of a crime. He's going to prison. He's here illegally. And so, again, the liberals suck on everything. So they're just, the liberals are never going to be completely on the right of anything. But they are, better in this circumstance because they're standing up for something that Republicans used to give a shit about, which is your due process rights. They flipped everything, that the Democrats are more into war not now with Trump, but originally, Obama was so pro-war and so, anti-whistleblower. And it used to be the opposite was the case, right? Like now all the things that the Democrats used to be known for, the Republicans are embracing those things. The Republicans are now into health foods and, these other things, mainstream medical stuff. And I mean, they're, some of them, like it's all flipping. And so the Republicans used to give a shit about your judicial rights. And, remembering that in 3 years, three years and some change, 3 years and 3/4, there's going to be a Democratic president, more than likely, with a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. And they're going to, go full fucking, yeah, Trump fucked us, so now we're going to go and do what we wanted to do all along. And now Trump has given them all kinds of power. The Supreme Court says the president can do things without ever being charged as a criminal. The Democrats are going to have that. And then all these things that Trump's done as a power grab, including getting rid of your Miranda rights. When they're pushing you through FEMA camps. This is how they're fucking you with this piece of shit right here, right? And so, yeah, this is an illegal alien, but what he's arguing for here is that you can put people in prison, and he's telling this guy to build even more prisons, and he said he wants to put domestic people. He's already said that, Trump has, that he wants to take people that are undesirable and lock them in a foreign prison in El Salvador. That's far worse than American prison, where you're going to have no judicial rights and you're just going to be stuck there. This is fucking a nightmare. This is like fucking gulag kind of bullshit, right? And so, that's the first part. But then what he said about this guy is a lie. We'll get back to that in a second.
I'm not saying he's a good guy. It's about the rule of law. The order from the Supreme Court stands, he came sir. into our country illegally. You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk. I could. You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now. And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that. But the court has ordered you to facilitate that. I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers that don't want to do this. But the buck stops in this office. No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
The law is saying something different. The president also...
Okay, so that's fucked, because there is a court order to say the guy should come back, not come back and be a citizen of America. I don't know what that's all about. But what I do know is what Trump said about him is bullshit, right? And the issue is putting him in prison. You can send him back to El Salvador. Like, that's what you should do, and, if you're going to follow the rule of law. It's a lot more complex than that, but that's true. If you're a Republican, you can say you're right about that. He is here illegally. And technically, he should go back. Although there's a lot of legal people that are doing crucial jobs that other people, American citizens, won't do. So there's a whole debate. There's a whole thing there with that, right? But this guy was going back to school, and he was picked up at a Home Depot parking lot looking for temporary work. So he held jobs. He contributed something to the American economy in terms of doing work that illegal aliens do, right? And don't think that that's not, valued, because it is. Because there are jobs oftentimes that American citizens, like I said, won't do. But that is whatever it is. So the guy shouldn't have gone to prison. That's where Trump is fucking everybody by pretending that isn't the case. And he's saying it's okay to take somebody. And again, if the guy was convicted of a crime here or in El Salvador, if he was wanted for criminal activity in El Salvador, then he would, then Trump, this would be a done deal. Because the guy would be where he's supposed to be, in prison in El Salvador where he committed crimes. If he committed crimes in America, again, you could make a case you could send him to El Salvador, and Americans could pay to house him there because he's not really an American citizen, so he shouldn't be in prison with American citizens. So, that again is, debatable. But he isn't convicted of any crime, so that's the issue. But here's the other piece to it. Okay, so I asked the AI bot. Now, AI bot, it's better information, right? And, because it's more inclusive, the AI bot also tries to figure out what you want to hear because they want to keep you coming back. Like, it's a whole thing. It's not accurate, but it's more accurate than, doing your own research and finding a bunch of news items and then trying to figure out, it condenses information for you. And so I wrote, what evidence is there that Abrigo Garcia beat his wife and was a gang member, or was in a gang? Here's a summary of available information regarding allegations against Kilmar Abrego Garcia, focusing on the evidence and context. Now, some of this is going to come from the liberal media, so there's could be a liberal bias, whatever. And I'm sure there's a liberal bias in this, but this is, what I know to be, and Trump isn't disputing this. Now, Trump said he was an abuser of women, right? He beat the shit out of his wife. Allegations in 2021, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife filed a protection order in Maryland alleging multiple instances of domestic violence, including physical assaults. She stated that he punched and scratched her, leaving her bruised and bleeding. She also mentioned an incident where he allegedly kicked her with a work boot. Court filing. The court filing included graphic descriptions of the alleged abuse and photos of the injuries. Dismissal. The protection order was later dismissed after his wife did not appear in court. She stated that they resolved their issues through counseling and their marriage grew stronger. Conflicting accounts. While the initial court filing details serious allegations, his wife would since downplay the incident, stating she acted out of caution and that the situation did not escalate. No charges. Abrego Garcia has never been charged in connection with domestic violence and claims. Okay, so here's the thing. Now, Trump has had multiple women come out and say that he abused them. So he had Stormy Daniels who said they had sex, and the evidence supporting her story is that Trump's fixer, who, Michael Cohen, paid her off $160,000 to keep her mouth shut about having sex with Trump. And so he banged a porn star, and then that whole fucking nightmare happened because he did that. It was a fuck up on Trump's part. And he was married at the time. He's cheated on all his wives, right? And then the other women who came forward and said he assaulted them in some way, Trump said that he could just walk up and grab women by the pussy. Remember, he said, which is an act of assault, which he said in that interview. And there's, lots of people that have corroborated his having, these. For one, he did the stuff with Miss Teen's USA pageant, the teenage girls. He was hitting on them and these things. There's all these stories. And then there's stories of abuse. And his first wife in divorce filing said he raped her when he was mad at her about something. And so these are the things that have been said about him that are far worse than have been said about this other guy by the other guy's wife. The thing with this guy and his wife, and she did provide photos and some other evidence, first of all, she fucked her husband over by bringing this to court, and he fucked himself over if he did do these things to her. Because if you're an illegal immigrant and you beat the shit out of your wife and she goes to the police, you should be fucking deported. And probably the woman as well, unless she's a citizen, which I don't think she is, because then he would be a citizen. And then they would have these kids here who are American-born, and they would be in El Salvador. So that's, like you're in a shitty position as a legal immigrant that you can't go to the police, right? Even as a wife getting her ass kicked. But apparently, they don't give a shit if you're illegal or not. Like if you come in, you don't have a social security number, and whatever happened there, we don't know. So there's that, right? But we do know his wife has changed her opinion or has said it's lesser than, or that they resolved this issue. And she withdrew her charges because of whatever reason. And so for Trump to want you to believe in him, that all these women, like he said that one woman, whatever the fuck her name is, then was asked if he raped her. He said, no, she's not my type, right? She wouldn't be my first choice, he said. She would not be my first choice. I mean, what a fucked up thing to say, right? But Trump wants all his people to believe he wouldn't do such things, based in women who said he did. And there's a woman who said, this guy's wife said he did. Trump doesn't want to give this guy the benefit of the doubt, but he expects it from you. Oh, I'm not that kind of guy, right? But he says that this guy is, because he wants this guy to be, because he fucked up, right? So here's the thing about gang membership. So again, think about that. Like Trump wants you to believe, well, the woman just said that, so that's not true. And even with the evidence of paying off Stormy Daniels, he denies that happened. But he's not countersuing her, and Trump is very litigious. And so, the whole thing, Trump's a piece of shit is what I'm saying. Gang membership. Allegation that Trump administration and ICE have claimed that Abrigo Garcia is a member of the MS-13 gang. That's the allegation. Source: the claim appears to stem from a 2019 accusation by a confidential informant who alleged Abrigo Garcia belonged to the MS-13 group in New York, a place he has never lived. Lack of conviction. Abrigo Garcia has never been charged or convicted of any gang-related crime here or in El Salvador. The government's evidence included his clothing at the time of the arrest, a Chicago Bulls hat, and a hoodie. That he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie, and so the color red must be, or Bulls, it must be associated with that gang. Which they claim was indicative of gang affiliation and the informant's statement. So there's two things here. So an informant who's a piece of shit because they're, criminals themselves. And who knows why he fingered this guy. But again, it's just hearsay. And how many people wear a Chicago Bulls hat and, whatever it is. Conflicting information. An immigration judge initially found that informants claimed trustworthy enough to deny bond. However, it was noted that there was more inconsistencies in the report the DHS relied upon. Another judge who handled his asylum claim found his testimony credible and consistent. The Trump tattoos. The Trump administration has also pointed out 2 tattoos on Abrigo's hand as evidence of gang affiliation. However, experts have cast doubt on the claim, noting that the tattoos are not typical of MS-13 markers, and such symbols are commonly used by people affiliated with gangs. They're saying that these aren't even the right tattoos. And, Trump doesn't give a shit. Like, they're just making shit up because he's a lying piece of shit. Like he said, they're eating the dogs even after he was told that wasn't happening. We finally heard, the truth that the woman who posted that her friend's cat was eaten, her cat was disappeared, the cat came back. So they were thinking that the Haitians were eating cats because she heard some bullshit she posted on Facebook, and then she said she regretted it because the cat came back, right? They're eating the dogs. Protection from deportation. Prior to his mistaken deportation, Abrigo Garcia was granted withholding of removal due to fear of gang persecution in El Salvador, suggesting the U.S. government previously acknowledged his vulnerability to gangs affiliated with them. So that's another piece of the evidence, right? And who knows if that was actually true. He's just making shit up because the people in the government were saying that he was in a gang, so he said, well, let's try to use that as a way to get asylum because he's a lying piece of shit too. But the bottom line is that Trump has very little evidence to support his claims, and Trump has many worse accusations against him. But he's prejudiced against this person because, Trump wants him to be this thing because otherwise it means Trump is wrong. It means he's doing a shitty job. It means a piece of shit. And it means that he's willing to violate people's civil liberties, not this guy, because this guy's is a scumbag he is whatever he is, right? The guy's a guy who came to America illegally. But he said he's willing to take on domestic people and put them in El Salvador prison. He said, now we got to get the domestic criminals, which who knows what that means. That means it could be you. Or it could be you in the future when Trump isn't in office and they got a Democrat in there. And so this is where they take away your rights. And once they start taking away your rights, you realize how fucked you are because your rights are what keep you from injustice. Even though there's a lot of injustice out there, it's worse without your rights. And so, again, going back to this Tucker Carlson thing, Tucker Carlson is supporting this guy, and all these so-called right-wing truthers should realize Trump's fucking them and fucking the American people and should speak up, but they won't because they suck. So, let me wrap this one up here. My voice is starting to go. But there's more of this to come. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.